I am obsessed with Baccarat Rouge 540. Did you know that about me? No matter how big my collection gets, and it is disgusting, basically, I don't care. It continues to hold a special place in it because here's the thing. The work Francis Kurkdijan did on that fragrance is masterful. It is iconic. And because of that, they stay replicating it. Other niche houses, celebrity brands, designers keep replicating, biting that signature because they know it works. It is incredible. It is beautiful. It smells expensive. That aromatic quality works on everybody. Women, men, doesn't matter. It is stunning. I love this fragrance so much. But I don't want to pay $400 a bottle every time I run out. What do I look like? A billionaire? I'm not. So what I do out here is I look for dupes. Yeah, I look for fragrances that smell pretty close to it for way less money. And I have collected a few dupes in my day, and I have opinions about which ones are lovely and wonderful and come pretty fucking close, and the ones that are failing miserably at the thing. And I'm going to rank them here for you today. If that sounds like your kind of thing, if you're looking for a BR540 adjacent fragrance because you want to get into that shit, I have options for you today because you deserve to smell luxurious without coming out of pocket like half our rent money. We don't need to do that to smell good, and I have some options in this video for you, so stick around and let's get into it.
Put my eyes on ya, put your back to the side, never slide for ya. I can tell what's something I can get what's.
Hi, I'm Jeanique, and I have to warn you that getting into BR540 and its many dupes is addictive. You pick up one, you think that's it, I'm satisfied, and you love the way you smell. The next thing you know, you're picking up dupe after dupe after dupe, getting different versions of the same fragrance. I'm not saying it isn't unhinged, I'm just warning you. Now, if you are adventurous anyway and you want to get into this with me, I have 11 fragrances to talk about in this video. Now, I'm going to talk about the original BR540 and the Extrait version. I'm also going to get into some of the dupes that I like and a couple that I don't like as much, as well as other fragrances that are claiming they are not dupes but basically are. So let's get into that. If this sounds like your kind of thing, you love a perfumey conversation, you think I'm adorable, and you love my like faux leather dress that I'm wearing today, hello, then you should subscribe to me and come back for more shit because it is fun over here. We talk dupes, we talk niche fragrances that cost too much fucking money, we talk about all of it. So now let's get into it.
Let me know how you feel, making time for ya. If it's real, we can build, hold it down for ya. I can tell what's something.
We're obviously starting off with the original, right? Because this is the blueprint for everything I'm going to talk about in this video today. And this fragrance is just about perfection. It is a heavy dose of saffron, and that creates this aromatic kind of quality that feels like it's enveloping you in this mildly sweet cloud. It is incredible. It is beautiful. It feels full. When I take deep breaths of this fragrance, I'm wearing it right now. When I take deep breaths of this fragrance, I feel full, and it takes me on a bit of a ride. You start off as a little sweet, and it gets harder and harder and harder, right until you land at the very end. This fragrance is a journey. It is an experience. It is beautiful. It is a mix of things like ambergris and cedar, like I said, saffron, a little bit of floral, some sweetness, I think, coming from vanilla, making this fragrance feel just incredibly sophisticated, perfectly unisex, and appropriate for whenever, wherever. I get why this fragrance blew up the way that it did. It wasn't propaganda and lies, y'all. This fragrance is incredibly expensive smelling. It is luxe, but it's also really versatile. Like, you could wear this to a fancy dinner, a night out. You could also wear it to work. You could also wear it to run get coffee. You basically always want to smell like this or a version of this. I'm gonna give you some cheaper versions though, because I'm a giver. Now let's get into some of the dupes that I love. In the number 5 spot for me has to be Fragrance World, I picked up the wrong one. Fragrance World's Baccarat Rouge 540. Now, this BR540 dupe is doing things I don't fully understand. I don't understand the inspiration behind it because they've taken out things that I think make BR540 what it is and put in things I don't think was necessary. Anyway, let's talk about what this is like. They take BR540, right? And they strip out a lot of the heavier woody elements like the cedar, which is a very heavy, darker kind of wood that reads a little bit dry. They replaced it with Laotian oud, and it's different from, say, Middle Eastern oud that tends to have a very distinct and very robust and even aggressive kind of smell, right? The Laotian oud is in the direction of like amber. So what essentially happens is that this version of BR540 from Fragrance World doesn't really have much woodiness at all. Now, the main floral, instead of doing white florals like most dupes of BR540 and the original, they go with a rose, a Turkish rose that is very musty or musky smelling, and that comes through making, I think it sort of makes up for a lack of saffron in this fragrance, but it makes the fragrance feel not as aromatic and light and airy. It makes it feel a little bit more claustrophobic and dense in the sort of air of the fragrance. So what ends up happening is, because of the absence of that woodiness and some of those greener notes like the fir happens to be gone, and there is no real ambergris in this either, what ends up happening is this fragrance just doesn't last very long. We cannot rely on rose for lasting power. Like, it's good, but it isn't cedar good, right? And so this fragrance not only doesn't have some of the key elements of BR540, it replaces it with some questionable choices like rose. I like rose, but not in this. You know what I mean? It is fine, but it is not fucking phenomenal. Now, if the problem you have with BR540 is the woodiness, then this might be an option. If you're a rose fan, this might be an option. If you want a more ambery base to the fragrance instead of a woody one, again, this might be an option for you. It is not a bad smelling fragrance. It smells fantastic. I just think I've tried so many great dupes. It just happens to be near the bottom for me. Now, it pains me, y'all, to put this in the number 4 spot. But like I said, I have tried a lot of great dupes, and somebody had to be in the number 4 spot, and it is Lattafa's Abiyedh Rouge. Now, this fragrance is lovely. It takes the original BR540 DNA and it pushes it in a far more feminine direction. So if your issue with BR540 is that it is too masculine, too unisex, you don't want it, this fragrance just shifts the fragrance into a more feminine direction by doing a few things. Number one, it goes with a lot more sweet fruit. So the original BR540 relies on things like citrus to make it a little bit sweet and a little bit airy. This one does things like kumquat. It has caramel in it. So it's a lot sweeter and warmer than we usually find BR540. On top of that, we have a lot more white florals in here, making this feel really girly and feminine and beautiful. Part of what happens, like the last fragrance I talked about that replaced those white florals with rose, is that this fragrance ends up being like not the best performer. I get about a half a day wear. Now, I wear this direct. You can see it's getting used, right? As many fragrances I have, for this fragrance to even have a dent at all shows that I am getting a lot of workplace use out of this fragrance. But it only takes me to about 1 o'clock. At that point, I have to top up with something else because I can't be bothered bringing this big ass bottle around. One of the great things about this fragrance, though, is how inexpensive it is. It's usually between $20 and $30 for about 100 mils of eau de parfum. So even if you aren't getting 8 hours out of it, you are getting a lot for your money. And that florally sweet BR540 energy, I really do appreciate. Like I said, I do get a lot of wear out of it, but compared to some other dupes that I think do a better job of lasting and giving us staying power and getting closer to the original, Abiyedh just isn't up to their level quite yet, but I do very, very much enjoy this one. Now, you might say, Jeanique. If Zara Red Temptation is in the number 3 spot, what is at the top, y'all? What is at the top? Because this is an iconic dupe of BR540, right? Everybody knows this one is super accessible. Like, you can go to Zara, test it out, try it out. That's what you should do. If you have not tried BR540 yet, go to Zara, try Red Temptation, see if you like that composition to know if BR540 is your vibe or not. That's the way to do it. That's the way. So why is this in the number 3 spot? Or what is this doing? This is the original BR540 for the most part, made slightly more watery rather than airy, more watery, and the volume has been turned down. Most dupes, like we've seen just now, take liberties. They add some rose, they add some Laotian oud, they add some florals, they add some caramel. They do their own thing. They take liberties. Zara took no liberties. They took the original BR540 composition, and all they did was turn the volume down. That's all they did. And surprisingly, and I know that most people disagree with me about the staying power of this fragrance, and maybe I just have terrible standards because Zara fragrances tend not to last, but Red Temptation doesn't do terrible. Like, I get about 4, sometimes a little bit more out of Red Temptation, and that might not sound like a lot, but for a Zara fragrance, that's not terrible. I recently did my top 5 fragrances of Zara video for 2023, and this was on there. Spoiler alert, this was on there for a very good reason. And as the longer I've had this fragrance, y'all, it has performed better. When I first picked this up around summertime and I reviewed it as part of a tray, I think a perfume tray video, it was not giving more than 2 hours, and I did not think it would improve because everybody told me it wouldn't. And the more I've had it, the more I've worn it, the more I've used it, I've seen it get better and better in terms of performance. Now, I think it's hit its peak at this point at about 4 to 5 hours, but that is not terrible for a Zara fragrance. Yes, it becomes a skin set near the end of the life of the fragrance, but you can still get some out of it. So yeah, this is Red Temptation from Zara, a very, very good dupe of BR540. If your issue with the original is that it is too bombastic, it's too in your face, it's a lick down people with smell, then, and you want something just a little bit more subtle in what it is giving, this gives a far more toned down version of BR540 if that is what you're looking for. And even if that's not what you're looking for, step into a Zara, test this out to see if you like it or not. What is your favorite BR540 dupe? Because I haven't tried all of them. I've tried a lot, but I'm always on the hunt. I'm always on the lookout for even better dupes. So if you have any recommendations dupe wise, or even fragrances just smell similar to BR540, have that DNA that can rock my world, let me know down in the comment section. The number 2 fragrance is potentially the most popular out of the bunch. It's not my favorite, but it is a lot of people's favorite, and it is Armaf's Club de Nuit Untold. Now, this is one of the closest dupes that I have tried. It really replicates a lot of the key elements of BR540, just ratcheting up certain areas that I think changes whether I would love this for my collection or not. So this fragrance takes the fur and just magnifies just a little bit. So a little bit greener than the original BR540. It is also a lot heavier and woodier, making this fragrance feel, to me at least, a lot more masculine. Like I said, BR540, the original, is perfectly unisex in my opinion. Anybody can wear that fragrance. Club de Nuit Untold feels a lot more masculine to me, and so it would not be one I would necessarily prioritize in my own collection if I had it. So this fragrance for me, although I think it's fantastic, it's phenomenal, and it really does replicate BR540 in a way that I think really does it justice, because it is more masculine. It also has like a kind of a steely sort of feel to it. It feels like there's steel in there or something metallic in it that makes it not quite my vibe. But if you are a man out there looking for a dupe of BR540, or you're looking to gift a man a dupe of BR540, this might be the way to go, because it does read a lot more masculine than at least anything that I've shown you here today. Y'all know what the number 1 fragrance is because I stay talking about this fragrance constantly, y'all, and it is Franck Olivier's Pure Addiction. This is just about perfect for me, especially since I have the original already. This gives me a different version of BR540 that I can get into, that I can enjoy, and I do fucking enjoy it. So this BR540 dupe is a citrusy version of BR540. So it takes the original and it adds in a lot of fresh citrus, not sour citrus, not sweet citrus, very fresh, bright, summery citrus. Now, I don't think citrus makes a fragrance either feminine or masculine. I think it's a very unisex note, and in this I think it plays that as well. So it doesn't take BR540 and move it either in a masculine or feminine direction. I think it holds it in the middle and just adds a little bit of a lightness and freshness. Now, there isn't as much saffron in this fragrance. So that saffron heaviness that we get from the original doesn't come through as much, but I think that citrus helps to carry the aromatic and the fresh vibes around you to make it feel really light, airy, and like you can wear it anywhere. Now this fragrance right here, y'all, it is beast mode. You get 12 plus hours out of it easy. If you overspray this, they will put you out of your job. Like every time I wear this and I think I've oversprayed and I step on an elevator, I want to apologize because I know I am choking people out, but I smell good. You know what I mean? It is beautiful, this fragrance. If you love the BR540 DNA and you're a citrus person, you love a fresher fragrance, this is a fresh take on BR540 without skimping on that woodiness or that aromatic quality or a lot of those other elements like the ambergris that make BR540 so special. We retain a lot of that stuff. We just make it a little bit more summery, which makes this my favorite BR540 dupe, hands down. Now, before we get into BR540 Extrait and talk a little bit about that and some of the dupes that are giving in that category, I want to flag a couple of fragrances that have that BR540 DNA, even though they're not perfectly replicating the fragrance. I'm going to start off with Nirvana Bourbon from Elizabeth and James. Now, this fragrance takes BR540 and it takes out some of the saffron, adds more woodiness, like a creamier wood to it. It takes out some of the sweetness and it adds some booze. So it's a boozy BR540 that is just a little bit heavier, a little bit woodier. This fragrance is really sexy, really grown, very sophisticated, smells just as rich, and it is a beautiful one, especially if you love a boozy fragrance. If the idea of a boozy BR540 sounds good to you, check this one out. Just know it does not have very much sweetness in it at all. There's no way to try Instant Crush from Mancera and not think of BR540 because it smells so similar. It is a beautiful fragrance that is eating of the Maison Francis Kurkdijan version hard, and it takes a few liberties that I think are worth mentioning. Now, the BR540 has fur in it, right? And that fur makes it feel a little bit greener, fresher, airier, just a little bit crisp. This one here adds a sweet orange to the mix, making this a little bit sweeter, a little bit just smoother in how it feels, not as airy. It also adds in some ginger. That little bit of spice that the ginger adds makes it feel a little exciting and a little bit different and makes it stand apart, and I love that. This is a beautiful one if you like BR540 but you enjoy ginger and orange as well. Like me, you could have both, right? You can have both. This is different enough, I think, that it sets it apart. It makes some decided choices that I think take it in a new direction, but it is definitely inspired by BR540 and does smell very similar. Now, I don't have them with me right now, but honorable mention is Cloud from Ariana Grande, which everybody points out is like a girlier, younger version of BR540, a less serious version of BR540. And she rose a 68 that is duping Cloud from Ariana Grande. Now, at this point, in my opinion, Ariana Grande's Cloud has become its own blueprint, its own sort of signature that we can identify. People are duping it. It's not just that people are duping BR540, people are duping Cloud itself, which brings in a sort of marshmallowy aspect to BR540, which is beautiful. It's really fun to wear and it's a great daytime fragrance. I love that one. I'm going to be doing Cloud Intense as part of my January perfume tray. Look out for that video. So those are my two honorable mentions. I didn't bring them in because I do feel like at this point Cloud is so all over the place. People love it so much. It's in so many people's collection that I don't know if we still associate Cloud with BR540 or Cloud is just now its own thing at this point. So let's get into the Baccarat Rouge 540 Extrait version. So that ratchets up the oil, but there are some inclusions, some changes that have been made to make the fragrance distinct from its EDP version. So the biggest change we see here is an addition of bitter almond to the composition, and that adds a lot of creaminess and heaviness to the fragrance. A lot of that heavy lifting in this one, instead of being done by wood or saffron, is really being done by that bitter almond, making this fragrance feel a lot smoother and rounder, a little bit sexier. The sweetness in here feels a little bit contradictory because there's some darkness in the fragrance playing off with a little bit more sweetness as well. They're both in here, making this fragrance feel a lot sexier, a lot more sultry. So while BR540 BR540, the EDP version, is the one you wear to the office. This one is great for those nights, romantic nights out, because it just feels a little bit more slinky and sexy, and I love this one. So there are two dupes that I really like and two dupes I have in my collection of the Extrait version. First, there's Orphic from Oakcha, and there is For Him Red from Zara. I'm going to start off with the Zara version because I've talked about this again in my Zara video that I just posted. So Zara's For Him Red takes the BR540 Extrait version with all that bitter almond and the saffron, the jasmine, the ambergris, all of those things. And it does one main thing. It takes the fur from the original, it ratchets that up, and it adds that in to this version. So it smells very close to the Extrait version, except it adds a lot more greenness, cut grass greenness, making this feel a little bit more outdoorsy. And so because we have a heavier dose of fur, it feels more aromatic, it feels a little bit lighter. In a lot of ways, this feels like a midway point between the Extrait version and the original EDP version of BR540, because we're taking some elements that have been cut out of the Extrait version and we're putting them back into this one. Really lovely. And it is also one of the longest lasting Zara fragrances I've ever tried, just putting in work and going on and on and on. This one is a very good dupe if you're looking for a dupe of BR540 Extrait. Now, Oakcha also has a dupe, and this dupe is not as creamy as the original Extrait version. It's supposed to be a dupe for the Extrait, obviously. This is Orphic. It doesn't have the creaminess of the almond. It's a mild creaminess in this one versus a lot more creaminess in the original. And this one is a lot sweeter. A lot is a strong word. There isn't much sweetness in BR540. It's a little hint of it, just right there to make it feel really cozy and inviting. This one amps up the sweetness just a tad. I don't think it makes it more feminine, but it is a choice that you should know about. So it feels a lot airier and slightly sweeter than the Extrait version of BR540, but it's still a very lovely one, and I find myself wearing this one a lot because it plays really well in the winter at night because it's a little bit heavier and still very, very pretty. I just did a video on the best niche fragrances from 2023, so if you love all things BR540, check that video out for some more gems that I discovered last year. If you enjoyed this video, you like my personality, you like the 2 cents that I am sharing, you enjoy this kind of video, don't forget to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I'd love to see you come back. Again, I am Jeanique. I will smell chic on a motherfucking budget, and that often means picking up a dupe or 2 or 3 or 10, and I refuse to apologize for that shit. I will see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.